What up, everybody? This is Stuart Knight, author of the books Marginalizing White Supremacy, Poetic Visions, A Steep Mister for a Sister, and A Spirit the World Has Forgotten. And I haven't posted in quite some time, so how is everybody? It's been quite a while since I've actually posted a video. You know, I've been doing a lot of other things, experiencing a lot of experiences. But I feel that, it might be a time that I need to start posting because there's a lot of things going on out here that really need some clarification as far as the continuing battle that Black people have against systematic white supremacy. And considering that, my book, Marginalizing White Supremacy, was written back in 2013, published in 2013, and a lot of the things that's within that book have come true, I think it's time that maybe I'll start speaking on a few of the topics that are going on in today's times. Now, one of the big top things that's going around nowadays between Black people, FBA people, and people who are from the continent or from other Caribbean countries is this notion that there's some kind of schism or divide between us, manifested out of a sense of xenophobia of some sense. And I had experience today that kind of played into that narrative. I was catching a cab home, and the driver I had, he was from Benin. Now when I first got into the car, he quoted me the price of like $30. And considering the distance I was going, I was like, that might be a bit much. But I didn't say nothing. I just paid the brother his money, and he was working out at the airport, so they expect them big dollars coming up out of that airport. So we rode all the way to my destination, didn't really say too much to him. I was still kind of a little incensed about that, paying $30 for that damn ride. But anyway, the conversation came about that was kind of centered around this current so-called FBA, and African divide, peoples from the continent divide. And he started speaking to me about, we have a common enemy and maybe we all can learn to understand that. And one thing he really got on, man, it kind of got my nerves a little bit, was the first thing you got to do, this is what he said, first thing you got to do is stop calling yourself Black. And I'm like, no, no, we as, foundational Black Americans, in labeling ourselves, in defining ourselves as a collective of people in our fight for reparations, the term Black has to be used in order to give us, to clarify a separate designation that has to be in order to be able to foster a legal framework against reparations. And I was trying to explain this to him, and he just kept kind of like talking past me and over me. Oh no, we can't. We ain't really call ourselves Black. We have to understand that. Do you see white people going around? And I kind of cut him off, and I was like, wait a minute. White people don't have to go around calling themselves white. You want to know why? Because they even defined you, and that's what we as Black people have to do in order to get this situation rectified to where we can empower ourselves as a people. We have to begin to define ourselves. And my first step is to be able to be proud in saying that we are Black. Now I can understand, if you still retain some of your cultural tribal designations and designations. I can understand that, and that's a good thing. But we, as foundational Black American people, we have the entirety of our African culture stripped from us in order to make us into slaves. So we do have, as a people, have to redefine ourselves. And like I said, the first step, I think, in being proud in us being Black. But the thing about it, is that as he was talking and he was speaking to me, about, the narrative that the Asians aren't recolonizing Africa is false, that's what white folks want to say. And I kind of want to say, okay, yeah, you don't understand how the Asians are functioning either. But, I understand. I didn't want to argue with him, but he just had this kind of like tone as if I really didn't have any kind of understanding of what was going on. being that I am a Black American, or FBA, as I am able to proudly say. ADOS, however you want to call it, my segment of the people came from the slave breeding farms, the slave cabins of America. So that's where we have to fight. This, fight against white supremacy and the acquisition of reparations. And like I said, we have to begin to name ourselves. But anyway, he got to talking about we have to understand, the history and how things have come from, how things gotten to this point. And, and I was like, yeah, and a lot of people in an African country got to remember their history also. Because the one thing that is really not understood is that even the present day African people, not just, those of us here in America, the Black Americans, we have forgotten our true great past in forming the civilizations that have, and the concepts to producing civilization that has been bastardized by systematic white supremacy. So I even made reference to him, like, look, Africans too, have to relearn the greatness of their history to get a true understanding as to why, the colonizers, or the killers, as he liked to call them. I didn't disagree with that at all. But and how they manipulated the minds of the mass majority of non-white peoples across the planet to actually serve their purposes in the maintenance and productivity, actually, of systematic white supremacy. Because, in the end, whether you're non-white in Africa or you're non-white here in America, you're still seen as shadow. You're seen as a commodity. You're seen as in the Matrix was said, that battery that is to fuel their system of white supremacy to enhance their so-called progression, through time in dominance, in being able to dominate all of the so-called lesser peoples of the world, definitely non-white peoples in particular and in specific. But, the thing, I don't know if he caught it, but, at the end of the conversation, I Googled my book, Marginalizing White Supremacy, and showed it to him. And like I was saying, all the time he was talking to me as if I didn't understand, how white supremacy worked to function. And so in the end, I had to show him, yeah, you're talking to somebody who has a clear understanding of white supremacy. And we got definitely the same enemy, if, so to speak, you want to call it an enemy. I usually, like I said in the book, to me, it's an arena of competition, actually, in my opinion. But, the thing that is very critical is that us, as FBA, ADOS, Black Americans, as you want to call it, we have a different understanding of the nature of white supremacy than a lot of the people from the continent and people from the other slave trading colonies of the West Indies and South America. Most of them who were sent to the West Indies or the South American areas during the transatlantic trade got to keep remnants of their culture. Us here in Black America, we didn't. But in the end, both of us have to get back to a true understanding of our primordial or prehistoric culture in order to fix the ills that we both suffer here on this continent and in the continent at home. So if anything is to come from this message, one, have an understanding, and have that understanding that we as a non-white people have both been victimized by systematic white supremacy, both in differing fashions, both for the same reasons, and both of us has to fix the issues on our separate avenues for that same reason. And that's the common unity and redevelopment of African culture, history, society, and the people as a whole. And on that note, a lot of the brothers and sisters from the continent feel that the efforts that Tariq Nasheed have put forth in trying to translate that understanding of how the African fight against white supremacy and the Black American fight against white supremacy, although one and the same, has to go about in differing fashions in order to effect the greater outcome, which is reparations for Black Americans and reparations for those on the African continent also. those people from the African diaspora, or should I say. And but the one thing that Tariq Nasheed, you know, and is that, and the man is petty, you know, I ain't mad at him, you know. He yeah, once he put the notion out there that, you know, there has to be a separate designation for Black Americans, he was attacked by a lot of non-FBA peoples, and in the end he felt it was unfair, and he jumped right in on the petty and started bagging on them. So now, you know, a lot of the people from the African diaspora, you know, have feel as if they're being as if xenophobia is being practiced against them, and that in some way, shape, or form, or fashion, Tariq Nasheed has created a witch hunt, is a term that I've said. And the one thing I've heard, I should say, and the one thing I will say, the one fault that Tariq Nasheed is doing in all of this is that he needs to temper, you know, that message of trying to get, you know, the African diaspora to understand the different situations and how they need to be solved. He needs to temper his rhetoric in order to not become over sensational to those people who are of not who don't have his level of understanding and intelligence about the situation. You know, those who can be easily influenced and who move strictly by emotions, and then eventually they go out there and they carry forth rhetoric, you know, that Tariq Nasheed has said, and that becomes very harmful and very distracting. And for the African brothers and sisters, you know, stop latching on the white supremacist, you know, talking points and slander comments, in a sense, you know, and saying that he's, you know, creating witch hunts and he's mimicking Hitler. I heard another one said that, you know, but understand, you know, as far as how white supremacy needs to be fought and attacked and minimized, you know, people, the African people who went to the separate slave colonies across this world during the transatlantic slave trade have differing modes of attack in order to, you know, get from this systematic white supremacy, to get from them the resources that they had stole from us in the beginning. So what I say is have a little understanding and let's get this fixed. Once again, this is Stuart Knight, author of the books Marginalizing White Supremacy, Poetic Visions, A Steep Mister for a Sister, and A Spirit the World Has Forgotten. Peace. Let me get that in the camera there. Peace. Yeah, peace.